Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I am AP Calculus and today I'll be reading chapter 2 of Waffles. Hope you all have a good time. Let's get right into this. Chapter 2. A blanket of rain to hide my tears. 12 years ago. Soft raindrops fell onto leaves. Children with their colourful rainbows stomped in the puddles. Everyone making their way to school in a group. Laughter, chatter, and umbrellas bumping into each other. In the back of the group was a little red head sitting on the floor and helping a ladybug get into the shade under the leaf. His umbrella was tossed to the side, but he didn't seem to care, even if his expensive dark blue suit, jacket, or plaid shorts got soaked. "What are you doing?" a child said in a petty voice. He had his other friends with him. Chia looked up at them and gave a light smile. "Helping the ladybug?" His voice was cut off when the boy gave him a harsh kick to the stomach. "You know what I hate? When people like you act nice. Don't pretend you're not rich. People like us have to work for everything we want to achieve in life." The child spat with tears welling up in his eyes. Chia looked up at the boy with wide eyes, only to be kicked again. "I'm sorry," Chia cried out. By now, the children up ahead were already gone. "You act like such a problematic child. Shut up. You know everyone only showed up for your birthday because you're rich." Tears rolled down the redhead's cheeks. "It's not like I can help it." He was kicked more and more until it felt numb. Once he was left on the floor with bruises all over, his umbrella thrown into someone else's yard before the kids ran off. She laid there. The wet, cold, hard concrete floor was the most comfort the child could ask for right now. A child had come into his sight. It was one from another school. It had a light blue dress shirt with a yellow bucket hat and dark blue hair. The child bent down and poked at the one who looked dead. "What?" The redhead finally spoke, with a dead voice making the brunette jump back. "Whoa, you're alive! You thought I was dead?" The redhead didn't get up from where he laid. "Kind of." The brunette leaned in closer. "What happened to you?" "I tripped," the redhead said quietly. "There's no way you tripped and got that hurt," the brunette said with a disbelieving tone. He tapped the tip of his finger on the redhead's closed and swollen eye, making the redhead yelp in pain. The redhead attempts to sit up, but felt a sharp pain in his upper and elbow. The brunette offered a hand, which the redhead hesitantly accepted. "What's your name?" the brunette asked. "Chia." The redhead leaned his weight on the other. "That's a pretty name. Can I call you Choo Choo?" The redhead scoffed. "No way," the redhead spat. What's your name?" "Osamu." The brunette smiled at the redhead. "What school are you from?" "I go to Lipton Kindergarten." "Why do you ask, Choo Choo Chan?" "I told you not to call me that." Chia spat, making the brunette laugh teasingly. "You look like you go to the nearby prestigious school here." As I mentioned, as he viewed the other uniform, the other just looked away. "Yeah, it sucks," Chia muttered. "What? I thought in rich schools you get good meals and pretty girls." Girls?" Chia choked out. Present time. "Remember that day we met, Chibi?" Dazai mentioned as he lounged on the lounge couch. "Yeah, and you gave me your first name like a fucking idiot," Chia replied as he sat on the carpet, playing video games on the TV. "What's wrong with that? You gave me your first." "You don't just give someone you just met your first name. And I only gave you mine because it's easier to say than Nakahara." Chia sighed when he lost his current game of Mario Kart. I miss when you used to say my name, when you used to say my first name. Chia's ears pricked up. Why would you? Chia asked, looking over to Darzai to see his gaze on him. Why don't you call me it again? Darzai ignored the question, a light smile on his face. No way, Chia growled, looking back over to his game. Please. Choo-choo. There was a long pause. Stop acting like a child. There was a small pause in the redhead's voice. Osamu. He could sense the smile lift up from ear to ear on the brunette's face. His own face felt a blush appear. Remember how we were when we were children? We used to play dress up. The brunette asked, letting his gaze soften as he looked at Chia's hair. You'd dress me up in princess outfits. Chia let himself smile a bit. His breath hitched when a pair of arms wrapped around him. Darzai, what are you doing? I'm hugging you. Darzai let his face dig into Chia's hair. The redhead's face became a light shade of pink. We also used to do this when we were younger. Darzai said. His grip was tight. Even if Chia wanted to escape, he couldn't. But as much as Chia wouldn't admit it, it wasn't half bad. Why so fixated on our past today? This was out of the ordinary. Their usual relationship was Darzai continuously teasing Chia, but maybe the brunette was feeling rather sentimental. Or he just wanted an excuse to hug Chia. Maybe I just wanted to smell your hair. Darzai snorted. What the heck? Chia couldn't hold back his laughter. These sweet moments were everything. Even if Chia retorted and playfully hit Darzai, or the brunette would make a dirty joke that ruined it. Nothing more than small hugs and signs of affection, even if the brunette wanted more. We should probably study for our exams coming up, Chia said, attempting to leave the other's embrace, only to be held back more. But Chibi, Darzai whined dramatically. You know how my father would feel if I got a score below 80. Chia said, letting himself force out a laugh. There was a moment of silence, because it really wasn't all that funny. His father would get mad. Okay. You don't need to feel bad for me. Chia's words trailed off. He was released from the hug, which made him miss it. Why don't we study together at the library? Darzai suggested. Chia agreed with a nod. Did you forget it? We were suspended for a week, and it's literally the middle of the night. It was true. Darzai was banned from the library for a week after jumping off the library's large balcony. He ended up with a sprained ankle and a suspension after begging for mercy from the principal. I know. Darzai's smirk grew. Wait. And that's how they ended up outside the huge door of the library at 1 a.m. This is so stupid. Chia watched as Darzai attempted to pick the lock. I learned how to pick a lock in my club activities. Just what kind of club are you in? Chia gasped when the large doors opened to reveal the dark library. Easy, Darzai said with a proud look on his face. We can't even see. Chia took a cautious step into the library. He could barely see a thing. Darzai turned on the flashlight of his phone, which made Chia sigh in relief. He walked closely to Darzai and jumped at the slightest sound. Just as much as a scaredy cat as always, Darzai teased. His voice echoed throughout the library, which caused a book to fall out from a high shelf onto the floor. Chia, who had claimed his next move was a mistake, clung onto Darzai in fear. Relax, Chibi. There's no monsters, and if there were, I'd just scare them off. The brunette had this determined childlike expression on. Chia just laughed. What? Can I at least be applauded for being brave? Darzai said in his playfully hurt tone. From then on, Chia felt less scared. Darzai's jokes kept him distracted. One day we should bring a dance party, bring music, and come here in the middle of the night. Darzai suggested, making Chia giggle. Why must it be here? because it's big, which makes it great for dancing. Daza gave some absurd hand gestures to explain his plan. Maybe we should do that in the future, Chia responded. The idea itself was ridiculous, but believe it or not, Chia's rebellious spirit spoke to him, especially when it involved the school and upsetting his father, which was the best part. And the best part was, he wouldn't even know it was him. We should seriously get focused on studying, Chia said in between laughter, and they did, with the exception of some laughing filling up the silence and small chats. Their talking and studying was put to an end when they saw the light switch on and the clacking of heels on the marble floor. Does I think we stayed here too late, Jude whispered to the other. They were on the far end, and her steps got closer and closer. Dazai, in the moment, just grabbed Chia and both hid under the table. Chia's stomach dropped when he heard footsteps come to a stop. Dazai held him close, and if anything, he was willing to cover for Chia. Dazai, I know very well that you're here, the librarian spat, not even willing to look under the table. Dazai let out a small laugh. He slipped away from Chia, not careful not to give away the redhead's hiding. Hey there, Margaret Sensei. Dazai smiled up at the woman. She looked him up and down, only to let out a frustrated sigh. What am I going to do with you? It was only a week restrained, and you know there are libraries around here. Around here? You know this place is in the middle of nowhere. Dazai tried steering her away from where Chia was. I don't even remember the last time you wanted to study, Dazai. Margaret eyed Dazai with a hum of disbelief. If I get high enough scores, my parents will take me out to a special dinner. Dazai was quick to make up an excuse, which the lady believed. Their voices trailed off. The woman obviously wanted to get Dazai out of there, and he was still restrained, but Dazai himself was a good talker. Chia slid out from under the table and ran behind bookshelves to hide from the woman's sight, and a successful escape. Though he knew Dazai would get his wrists slapped by the principal when he found out, it would be better than whatever Chia would get. Upon arriving back at his dorm, Dazai would come back shortly after with a post-it note stick attached to his forehead. Why do you have a post-it note on your forehead? Chia asked as the brunette casually walked into the kitchen. Margaret Sensei does that to people when she gives them detention, Dazai said as he pulled it off his forehead to read it. It was some detention time signed by Margaret, and Dazai was supposed to give it to the principal once he finished. But don't we use cards? Chia pulled out a card he had in his pocket. In modern days, the school had key cards for getting into dorms, but they also had detention time on it if you got into trouble. If you didn't show up and sign into a detention at a certain time for a certain amount of time, it also held basic to-do lists like homework, upcoming assignments, and class notes. If you wanted to check, you could easily go up to a dog stand, which, believe it or not, was actually a dog-looking machine, where you inserted your ID card and you'd be able to look at all the information from your account. These dog stands were scattered all around the school. Oh, the cards? You know Margaret's an old-timer kind of lady. Dazai laughed a bit as he said the words. She doesn't even know how the machine works. Surprised she isn't fired. Dazai opened the fridge to grab himself something simple to eat, noodles. Atsushi suddenly made his way down the long staircase. He was buttoning up his red suit jacket while struggling to keep his backpack closed. Atsushi, do you want anything for breakfast? Dazai offered, but Atsushi just shook his head. I'm fine. I need to hurry out the door anyway, since the teacher wanted me to help me catch up with the class since I'm new. Atsushi said with a light smile on his face, one that anyone would remember. Oh, I forgot my textbook. Atsushi mumbled to himself, making his way back up the stairs. Why are you up there? Could you wake up the girl for school? Dazai shouted. The silver-haired boy was unsure, but he agreed to do so anyways. I'm pretty sure he hates me, Atsushi thought to himself as he peeked through the hallway to Vanasuke's room. He went up to the door and knocked lightly. Tagawa, it's time for school, Atsushi said in a soft tone. Oh, you're gonna have to go in there and yell at him to wake him up, Dazai said with a reassuring smile as he peeked through the hallway, only to go back downstairs. Dazai-san, what, can't you? I don't want to make him mad. Atsushi noticed he was already gone. It shouldn't be a big deal anyways, Atsushi tried to reassure himself. As he stepped into the bedroom, it was filled with paintings of tigers, whose eyes were the only blank things in the picture. They were really colourful. The colours were always dark. They portrayed a hopeless monster who saw no light. He could feel it within him. It sent a shiver down his spine. Yet he also felt light within it, like a bright shining lily in a storm that continued shining even when the world was not in its favour. Atsushi continued walking down the room. It wasn't all that big, but he took his time to look at the rather emo style of the room. That gothic vibes more so. Yet it was so minimalistic. He walked across where Vanasuke slept and looked over to see his face. He was sleeping, surely, but Atsushi could quickly notice how different he looked. His expression was relaxed and less uptight than it would be usually. The red silk sheets he was wrapped up in and the empty spot beside him. It was a bit of a sad sight to look at. Atsushi poked the sleeping pale cheek, not really sure what to do to wake him up. Octagawa, it's time for school, Atsushi said in a soft tone, trying to wake him up without ending up dead. What? Vanasuke said, but with utter annoyance, but stopped in his words the second he met Atsushi's for a split second. He ended up going underneath his blanket to avoid the bright rays of sunlight, and letting out a simple, just give me 5 minutes, which felt like he was getting off big time. Thank you, Atsushi said with a sigh of relief. He seriously thought he was going to die for a second there, especially since any amount of eye contact with him catches him off guard. His instincts tell him to run, but his heart tells him to stand his ground. Atsushi quickly scurries out of the room and downstairs. He'd almost forgotten what he was supposed to do, that he was supposed to meet up with his teacher. Did you wake him up? Daza said as he blinked at the silver-haired boy. Yeah, he said he'll be down in 5 minutes, Atsushi said absent-mindedly, paying attention to grabbing his backpack, more so than the brunette. Dazai and Chuya looked at each other, blinking a couple of times to make sure they were actually awake. Dazai literally almost dropped the pancake he had been flipping onto the floor. And he didn't hit you? Chuya looked at Atsushi from the couch with this surprised expression. I hope not. Atsushi ran towards the door, almost stumbling when putting on his shoes in a hurry. He quickly rushed out as he had been running late. Do you think Rhinosuke's sick? Chuya asked with a blank expression. I hope not. Dazai continued flipping the pancakes he decided to make. Rhinosuke soon made his way downstairs, causing some stares from Chuya and Dazai. What? Rhinosuke said with a confused look at his face, coughing into his hand a couple of times, then stuffing it into his pocket. The two remained silent as they went back to whatever they were doing. It wasn't long until the rest left for school, as well as some deliciously burnt pancakes that Dazai made. Next time Chuya should properly make the pancakes, was a promise they decided to make, even if Dazai said they tasted fine. After the first few classes let out and It was finally time for lunchtime, and Atsushi was invited to sit with his roommates and eat with them, as he gladly accepted. Do you guys always eat in the garden? Atsushi asked as Zazai led him through the school's doors into a garden filled with beautiful flowers and green leafy plants. Yeah, we have our own spot. As I said, they both stopped at the place hidden behind the trees and flowers. Vines hung loosely covering the entrance to a hiding place of some sort. It was a miniature stream of water that ran through small crevices in the brick floor. There was a dark wooden picnic inside. Atsushi stopped when he saw an unfamiliar face other than Chuya and Ranosuke. She had been She had short blonde hair and wore a blue suit jacket like Ranosuke. She stopped and stared at Atsushi. She had been attempting to feed Ranosuke some of her lunch. Who is she? Atsushi was the first to mutter out. It almost sounded rude, even if he didn't mean it to. Meet Higuchi, Dazai quickly introduced her. She seemed rather appalled by the other's existence, but continued on anyway. Hello, I am Higuchi, Ranosuke's friend. Higuchi said with a bright smile, and she shook Atsushi's hand. Oh, I'm Atsushi. Nice to meet you. Atsushi smiled back. Something almost menacing about her smile, but Atsushi decided to ignore it. They all ate lunch together. Ranosuke had to attempt Higuchi feeding him multiple times, which caused a slight annoyance to the lunch. Are they secretly dating or something? Atsushi asked Zazai, who started staring at Ranosuke, who seemed pissed off by her mere existence, but at the same time, he always looked pissed. No, Higuchi just really admires Okugawa. Dazai simply answered. Neither would know why exactly Higuchi admired Ranosuke, but he must have done something good, which is actually surprising. If someone thought of Ranosuke doing something good, they'd think he killed someone that got on their nerves. Well, maybe not exactly that, but it sounds pretty damn close. Around the middle of the lunchtime, another girl walked in, though this one had long black hair, silver eyes. She also had a blue suit jacket. Hi, Higuchi. She walked over and gave Higuchi a short hug before sitting down. You don't even say hi to me? You're a cold sister. Ranosuke sipped on his tea, making little eye contact with her. Apologize for stealing my shampoo! Higuchi gave an angry stare, yet it held some hateful aspects to it. She's Okugawa's sister and Higuchi's girlfriend. Dazai whispered to Atsushi. Girlfriend? Atsushi's eyes widened a bit. I'm telling you, I didn't. Ranosuke said with a small annoyance in his tone. He coughed into his hands once again. I did it, Higuchi confessed. Ichio? Why so? Higuchi again stuttered in surprise. Because that shampoo wasn't organic. How could you even use shampoo with such bad reviews? Your hair deserves to be taken care of. Higuchi said with tears welling up in her eyes. Really? Yes, I bought you some Philip B. It's a Russian Amber Imperial shampoo. Fiona recommended it. Higuchi said with a determination. It didn't need to be expensive shampoo, but thank you. Gina hugged Higuchi tightly. What a nice result, Atsushi muttered out with a nervous laugh. He was definitely not used to having such dramatic friends, if that was the right word. I wish Daza would get me some nice shampoo, Chuya spat, crossing his arms in retort to the situation. But Chibi, last time I did that you got so very mad. Dazai slowed his words out with a dramatic pose. Because how am I supposed to know if they're not poisoned? Chuya tried to make sense of his actions. The bickering and chatter continued with Atsushi and Ranosuke keeping their silence. Ranosuke seemed to be reading a classic of some sort. Crime and Punishment, Atsushi thinks it was. Ranosuke's bangs covered his face slightly, and his eyes were narrowed down at the words he read. Atsushi stared at him as he read. Maybe it was on accident, but he had nothing else better to do. The grey eyes that became more silver in the sunlight, and the well-fitted school outfit he wore, it made him think about someone who was quiet but quick to lash out. A murderer who wouldn't flinch if blood splattered onto their pale skin. Morasuke looked up from his book, and their eyes locked for a second, until Dazai interrupted. Atsushi, Dazai shouted, catching the boy's attention. You should join our club. Oh, I forgot clubs existed. Atsushi scratched the back of his neck with an awkward yet endearing characteristic to his actions. What is it about? The silver-haired boy asked. A club to pass time, Dazai said energetically. Why a club just to pass time? Well, in our school we kinda need to join a club, so we got Cheers to make one. Yeah, I didn't enjoy that much. Cheers spat. Yeah, but your dad said yes, didn't he? Dazai looked over to the redhead. He wasn't even paying attention. Chuya simply responded with a lost expression. You should join Atsushi. Dazai let out a hand as if to make a grand gesture. Sure, why not, I guess? Atsushi agreed. Whether he wanted to be in a group or not, it wasn't long until the bells rang again, and everyone began leaving for class. Everyone had left except for Atsushi and Ranosuke, who were still packing up their stuff quickly. You didn't want to join, did you? Ranosuke said, breaking the silence, then coughing a bit. What do you mean? Atsushi tilted his head. I didn't know you were listening. The silver-haired male thought back to how he had been reading. It just wouldn't make sense for you to join a club, some stupid club like that, Ranosuke said coldly. How so? Wouldn't you prefer to join an actual club? When met with those words, he felt like Ranosuke had seen right through him, which felt uncomfortable. Atsushi was quick to pack up his stuff and turn to the exit. Maybe so, Atsushi said quiet but loud enough for Ranosuke to hear. Atsushi was never good at expressing his feelings in big groups, especially chatty ones. Having outgoing and bubbly friends was great, but he never got a chance to gather himself and join into the conversation. He had always been better around quiet people, those who were shy. He could lead the conversation more naturally and even get them in some ways. School itself ended quickly. People got back to their homes as usual, and as usual Ranosuke went upstairs to his bedroom. Atsushi decided to do his homework in the kitchen, while Dazai and Chuya strolled around the house, bored, until they decided to leave for the store around 7 p.m., which left the silver-haired boy alone. He tapped the tip of his pen on his lower lip as he concentrated on the zoology homework he had been given, which was generously made specifically for him as a part of the part of the school offers in student capabilities. Atsushi wasn't used to this kind of difficulty, but he was sure enough he could get it done. He just didn't know how long it would take. The boy hadn't kept track of time, but it must have been hours, because it turned pitch black outside. What made him notice that was footsteps coming down the stairs. Dazai and Chu hadn't come back yet, so he assumed it would be Ranosuke, and it was. He walked down the stairs rubbing his eyelids as if he had just woken up. He wore a black tee with a barcode design on it, a blue jacket that had pockets all over it, and some black jeans. Not to mention the whole outfit was splattered with paint of all kinds. He left out a soft yawn, almost too soft for someone who looked like him, and continued walking into the kitchen absent-mindedly. Atsushi just stared at him, wide-eyed. It took a second until Ranosuke noticed him, and retorted a bit by jumping a little. Why are you up this late? Ranosuke asked. Okay, so it's official. I'm as sick as a dog. It's currently 4 o'clock in the morning. Yes, the same night I recorded the last video. Well, the first part to this fic. I don't know if I'm going to be uploading them at the same time, or if a couple of days apart, or if I'm doing another fic in between. I don't know. But my throat is killing me, my nose is runny, I'm freezing cold, and I am just shit all round. Anyway, I hope this wasn't too bad. I've got hot hands in my hands, which are just like little heat warmers, because I'm freezing. So I'm gonna go into bed, turn my electric blanket on. Fuck it, I'm gonna turn it on now. Literally. There we go, it's on high. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry if this is shit, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Make sure to take care of yourself. Not like I'm doing. See ya.